In today's session, we will be looking at the Azure Document Intelligence, which is basically a part of Microsoft Azure AI Suite. It's basically a collection of services which is designed to extract insights and meaning from various types of documents. It offers tools and capabilities for processing, extracting, and analyzing information from your forms, invoices, receipts, and so on and so forth. So in today's video, what we'll do is basically we'll see how you would be able to create this or provision this resource. How would you be able to test it with your Postman tool, and we'll also look at one of the scenarios wherein you can imagine you have a document which is getting uploaded to your Azure storage device, and you want this document to be processed, or the, let's say probably it's an invoice or it's a PDF document, and you want to extract all that information and store it somewhere else. So we'll look at the complete scenario. We'll build this all the resources step by step, but starting with creating this or provisioning this resource first, and then checking it in the Postman tool. So let's start with that. So you can basically navigate to your portal.azure.com, and you can search for Azure AI services. So you can see I already have it in my recent services, and I'll select that. Otherwise, you can just type in Azure AI services, and it'll show you those services here. And once you are, once the service opens, you can scroll down, and on the left side, you would be able to see the document intelligence. Let me collapse this. And you can see I don't have any resources, within this document intelligence. So let's create that resource now. All right. So again, as it goes, so basically the first thing that you have to do is basically select your subscription. Since I only have one subscription, I'll go with that. I'll create a new resource group. Since this is a document process RG, I'll name that resource group as doc process RG. The region, I'll keep it as East US, and the name, I'll give it as doc process test. Let's see if this name is available. Okay, yes, it is. So that is there. And when it comes to the pricing tier, you have an option of selecting a free tier, which is R0 or F0, and you also have the option of going with the standard S0. So since I was testing it earlier, that's the reason I am not able to see the free tier here, but you would be able to see it if you are creating it for the first time. And if you would like to see the pricing details for each of them, you can, this is the link here. You can click on that. This will take you to the Microsoft site, where it'll list down all the details regarding which region. You can select the region, you can select the currency, and it'll list down all the details regarding what is the instance type that is available, on the document type and the price that is available here. All right, so let's go back, and I'm going to select the standard one for now. And let's go to the next option. I'll leave this as the default settings. Go to the next. This is also going to be the default one. Tags, I'm not going to assign any tags. I'll go to review and create, and then I'll hit create. So now, since this is getting created, what we'll do is basically download the Postman tool to test it with the API. So let's later. And let's download the Postman. All right, so our resource is also deployed, and our Postman tool is also getting, initiated, or it's getting opening up. So you can see, this would be your first screen when you log into your Postman tool. So you have an option of, signing it with your email address. But if you don't want to sign up with your email address, you can basically look at this option which says or continue with the lightweight API client. See, the only difference is, whatever option or whatever endpoints or settings that you're going to do would be synced up with your email address. So let's go to the lightweight API client for now. So now since the tool is open, let's see how we can build up, the endpoint and fetch the details, or how we can test it out. All right. So since our, the document intelligence resource has been deployed or has been provisioned, and our Postman tool has been installed, so let's look at how we can build the REST endpoint to, get the details. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do is basically see how we can, get the information about how we can, build the endpoint actually, right? So if you go to Google and search for document intelligence, so you would be able to find this particular documentation, which talks about, what are the services that are available and how you can build your endpoint. So if we look at this example, this gives you basically an HTTP request, which is going to be a post request with the endpoint details here. I'll show you how you can get this endpoint. With this information which talks about the document intelligence, the document models, and the model ID. Rest of the information remaining the same. So the first thing that we are going to have a look at is how do we find the model ID. So you have a couple of options. Basically, there are pre-built models that are available, and you can, it could be if you're trying to extract an invoice, there is an pre-built model which basically extract the invoice details. If you are trying to, extract information from an ID document, let's say probably it's an license, right? So there is a pre-built model which exists for that as well. And there are a lot of, pre-built model which are there. You can also build your custom model as well. So, so we'll check how we can get that information about how, on getting the pre-built model information. So if you scroll down, let's see if we can find that information from this. So there is nothing which is mentioned in this one, but in order to get that information or the details, if you scroll down on the left, I'm right now in the analyze document, but if you scroll down, there is an option here which says list models. So this would list on all the details about, what are the available or the pre-built models that are available. So let's copy this information. You can see this is a get HTTP request. So let's copy this, go back to the Postman tool, paste it here. And in order to get the endpoint details, what you have to do is basically go back to the resource that we provisioned. So let's source. So there are two ways that you can get the endpoint. One is listed down here. So you can see in the overview section, it is listed down. Or you can go to the keys and the endpoint where you'll be able to find the subscription key as well. So we'll talk about the keys later on, but right now let's copy this, go back to the Postman tool and paste it here. All right. So the next thing is setting the headers. So if we go back to the same documentation, what headers have to be sent out? So if we look at this one, it says, the subscription key has to be provided, which is going to be the header option. So let's copy this, go back to the Postman tool and paste it here. And the subscription key is nothing but the key one and the key two, which I just showed you a moment ago. So you can use any one of them, it doesn't matter. And if you would like to regenerate them, you have an option here. You can regenerate the key one and the key two. Let me use the key one option for now. Go back, paste the value here. And now once I hit send, this would list down all the models that are available to me. So there you go. So you can see, these are all the pre-built models that are available, and this is what the model ID is. So we have to use something like pre-built contract if we are working on a contract. If it's an health insurance card, this is the pre-built model for that. You can see it says description is extract key information from US health insurance cards. Similarly, there is a pre-built model for ID documentation. So you can see this is basically for passports and ID cards. Or you have the invoice, or you have the layout, or you can even read the document, what is there. So this basically extracts the text from the documents. So that's how we are basically getting the information about, the model ID. So now let's use this model ID to build our endpoint so that we can send our PDF document and extract the information from that. So let's open a new tab here, go back to the documentation, and let's look at analyze document, right? So let's go to that. So if I'm going to take this example, let me copy this. This is going to be a post request. Proceed. Go back, paste it here. I'll make this as a post one, and I'll copy the endpoint. Right, so that is copied. Now let's look at what is the header that has to be sent, right? So one of the header we already know about it, that is the key that has to be sent across. So we'll use the same key. And the next one is basically setting the content type. So since we will be using, if you're sending it in a JSON format, you have to specify the JSON. But since we are dealing with a document, I'll be sending out basically, a PDF document. So I have to select the appropriate content type for that. And the content type for a PDF document is, let me show you, which is going to be application/PDF. So if we scroll down, you would be able to see this. This is what we are going to use. Or if it's an image, that will be a different option here. But since this is going to be our PDF document, we'll use application/PDF. Right. So now we'll use the model ID. So we have to look at the model ID. So now let's go back to the let's take one of the model ID that we have fetched earlier. So let's use this read ID here. Let's see. Let's go back and replace this model ID with the pre-built model ID. And now when you send this response, so there are two things that will happen. One is you won't be able to see the result immediately. This document, would be submitted for, uh, for processing. So but we'll also get another endpoint where we can fetch all that information that, from this document. So, but before doing, before hitting, hitting the send option here, we have to attach the document. So now you can go to the body section, go to the binary format, and click on select file. I have already downloaded one of the file here, which is going to be our invoice. So we'll use that one. And this is a sample one which I got from the internet. So I'm just using that one. So I'm going to select that. So you can see this attached here. And now you can hit send. So you can see, I'm not getting any result out of this. So what you have to do is in the header section here, click on the header section and copy the operation location. So right now our document has been submitted for processing, and to get the result, we have to use this endpoint to fetch those results. Again, this is a get request, so paste it. I've opened a different tab, paste the operation location here, and then the next one is basically take the key from our header section. So let's go back, copy this, and then go to the header here, paste it, go back, take the key, and paste it, and then hit send. So now this will basically, give you all the result that is part of that invoice document. So you can see, this is a pre-built model that we are using. So you can see the string index type is a text element. It is reading the content out of it. It's basically printing out all the contents, and it also lists down, which page it is trying to read, the height, the unit, the words. You can see the content is font also, and the address, all those information. So similarly, let's have a look at the extract the invoice. So because since this is an invoice, let's use the pre-built invoice details to fetch that information. So all we have to do is go back, change the pre-built model ID from pre-built read to pre-built invoice. Hit send. Once that is done, copy this option here, copy the operation location, go to the tab where we used it for fetching the information earlier, paste it there and hit send. And now it'll list down your invoice details. So you can see it's more or less the same details which has been listed down, but it basically extract all the information. You can use this information and you can store that information in one of the databases or tables, or you can link it with your SharePoint and you can save it over there. So this is basically for your Postman tool. Now what we are going to do is look at how we can use it in a real scenario. So let's say you have your uh, Azure storage account, and people are basically uploading documents over there. So it could be a PDF document or it could be an image. And as soon as that document is uploaded, you want to extract that information and store it in one of the databases. So we'll use a combination of three resources in that. So we'll use Azure Storage device or Azure Storage. And as soon as the document is uploaded over there, we'll use Azure function, which gets triggered as soon as the document is uploaded. And that Azure function would basically send out requests to the document intelligence tool to process that document and extract that information and show it to us on the screen. So let's take that one by one. So right now, in order to get that, I'll show you how you can set up your development environment first of all. So the first thing that you need to do is download the Node.js tool. So let's go there, download the Node.js. You can use, the LTS version which is there. For me, it is showing as 20.10.0. So I'll use that one. Right. Try to install this. All right. So for me, this is successfully installed. But to verify whether it's properly installed or not, what you can do is basically open your command prompt and type this command over there, which is node -- version. And if everything is properly installed, it will show you the version which is listed down in this screen, which is 20.10.0. So you can see this is showing everything properly. So that means it is installed. Now let's look at the npm package version. And so you can see it is 10.2.3. So that's the first thing that you're going to install. The next thing that we are going to install is a core tool, which is needed for the Azure function, to debugging. So let's do that. Azure functions. So search for Azure Functions core tools, and you'll get the first option here which says develop Azure Functions locally using your core tools. So let's download that. So since we'll be using a JavaScript, let's go there. So select it appropriately and then select the OS in which you're trying to develop your function app. And let's download, the 64-bit for the Windows. And since this is getting installed, in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll use one of the IDE for our development purpose. So you can use anything, but what I prefer basically Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to download that Studio. I'm going to download that one. So again, select your appropriate OS. So I'm going to go with Windows. Okay, so this core tool is installed. Let's finish this. And let's now install the Visual Studio Code. And once Visual Studio Code is installed, I'll show you what are the extensions that needs to be enabled or installed for us to start with the development process. Okay, let's screen. Okay. Now click on the extensions here and search for Azure Functions. So you can see this is the one. So you can install this. So right now you can see there is no icon for the Azure. As soon as you will install this, you will get an icon for Azure, and that I'll show you further, like how you can connect to your account and then how you can develop your Azure functions, and how the complete or the entire workflow will. All right, so this is done. You can install, there are a couple of other extensions that you can install if you would like to format your code. There is another, extensions for that, but I'm not going to do anything for now. So the next thing that I'm going to do is basically connect my account. So let's go to Azure. And you can see, this is not connected to my account now. So this gives you three options, which is like sign into Azure or create an Azure account or create an Azure for students. So since I already have an account, I'm going to sign into my account now. So let's click on that. And so this is signed in. Close this, go back to the Visual Studio Code. And now you can see, I have my subscription here. I expand this, refresh this. I don't have any functions app. And if I look at the storage account, I don't have any storage account. So what we spoke about earlier, right? So how we are going to test this is somebody would be, uploading a document in the Azure storage. And when you upload the document, the Azure functions would trigger. And in turn, it would basically, send all that information, or it would trigger the document intelligence, which would process the document and send us all the information. So let's start with, since we have already built our document intelligence, there are two more resources that we have to build now. One is the Azure Functions and the storage. So both of them can be done, simultaneously from here. So now let's go to our Explorer. Let's open a folder from this. I'm just going to go to the downloads, create a new folder here. Let's say process doc. Select that folder. Click on trust the authors. Yes, I trust the authors. And then if you go back to your Azure icon, if you click on the Azure icon here, and if you look at the local workspace, what you have to do is basically click on this function icon here and hit create a new project. So this would ask you, where would you like to place this project? So we just selected a process doc folder and we'll place the entire project within that folder. So let's select that. And next is, which language you would like to develop. So since we are developing using JavaScript, let's select JavaScript. And I'm going to use the latest model v4, which is, also the recommended version. And then this is the important part. So how would the Azure function trigger, or how or when would the Azure function trigger, right? So since this is serverless, so we have to specify, what is the trigger point for this Azure functions. So whether this would be an HTTP trigger, or whether it would be a timer trigger, or whether it would be an Azure blob storage trigger. So this is the one that we are going to select. That is going to be the Azure blob storage trigger. So that means that as soon as you upload a new document or update an existing document, this functions would trigger, and that is how the whole process would continue. So let's select the Azure blob trigger, and now you can name your function. You can rename this, or you can leave it as is. I'm going to leave it as is for now. Enter, and I'm going to create a new local app settings. Yes. So now you can see, since we are creating a project, it is asking for, if you already have a storage account, or if you would like to create a new storage account. So since I don't have any storage account, let's create that storage account, and that is the one which we'll be using for our testing. And the functions would also use the same storage for, placing all the logs and everything. So let's create a new storage account, provide it a name. Let's say process doc 110011. I'm just giving a random name because it has to be unique. So I'm going to give a random name now and hit enter. And then it's basically asking us, if you want to create a new resource group, or if you would like to use an existing resource group and place all the resources within, that group itself. So since we already have a doc process RG, let's use that one to, provision all the resources. And the last item is basically it is asking about, what would be the container name. So once you provision your Azure storage, you also create a container within, or the container within that Azure storage. And this is the detail that it is asking about. What would be the name of that container? So let's name this as my container testing. And this is nothing but, this will basically provide you with whatever, the document is uploaded. This will automatically take up that name. So let's select that, hit enter. So right now it's creating the new project for us. It is creating the storage account for us. And it'll also, I'll just show you like how this will work. So let's go back to the folder. So you can see our structure is getting created. Our package.json file is getting created. And the the entry point or the index file or the function would also get created here. So you can see this is also created, and it will provide a basic skeleton for us to work with. So let's go look at the package.json. So you can see it has basically installed, it has provided one of the dependencies, which is the Azure functions. But along with that, there are a couple of other dependencies that we need to install, and I'll just show you which one it is. If you go to the terminal, installed. So one of them is the .env. This is basically used for using your environment variables. So I'll show you how you can set up your environment variables as well. So npm install .env. All right, so this is installed, and that dependency will also be included in your package.json file. So you can see this is the one, and the other one is basically your form recognizer. So let's do this. So this is the one which is going to be npm install at Azure. So you have basically different SDKs for for different languages. That information you can get it from the same portal that we saw about the REST API. So here we just have to basically, since we are going to go with the JavaScript, we have to install that particular SDK. Uh, so, so this is the one that we have to use. All right, so this is, all the dependencies are now installed. You can see this, these are the dependencies that is needed for this project. So we'll install that. Now let's look at one of the case here. So I have seen, one scenario wherein even though I've created the storage account, and if, it doesn't get reflected here. So you can see, let me refresh this. Okay, now it's visible. So that's good. Otherwise I've seen a scenario wherein even though I've created the storage account, it's getting reflected in the portal, but it's not getting reflected, within the app. So right now it's working. So the next thing that we are going to do is go back to our portal, look at all the resources, and go to the storage account, which is this. Go to the containers. The containers are not there, so we have to create the containers now. So what you can do is look at the storage block trigger.js file which you have created, and take the container name from here. This is the path. So let's copy that. Go back to the portal, click on container, paste it here. Okay, create. Okay, so this is created. This switch to access key. Okay, so this is working. Now what we have to do is basically go back again, just go back to the container, and we'll test the code now. So this is just a basic test just to check when we document, within the Azure storage, whether this function is getting triggered or not. So when we upload a document here, what's going to happen is, this is going to provide us a context log where you can see with say storage function processed blob, the name of the blob and the blob length. Okay. So let's test that out. So in order to test it, what you have to do is basically go to your Visual Studio Code again, go to the run option here, and then click on start debugging. Okay. So this is what it's going to ask you. So in order to proceed, you must connect a storage account for internal use by Azure Functions Runtime. So this is the reason, when we initially created the function, it also provisioned the storage account. And let's connect to that. So once you hit connect storage account, you can see this is the one that we created. So let's use that same one, and I'll just show you what it does. It basically creates additional containers over here. So if you refresh this, let's wait for this to be processed. It's still doing something. since this is done, let's go back and now let's check. There you go. So you can see, there are additional containers which have been created, and this is basically used by the function app itself. So now let's go back, and you can see, it is the function app is initiated. It is, uh, and now let's do one thing. Let's upload a document. So once you go back to your my container testing, so you can see I don't have any documents here. Let's upload a document. Let's go to downloads. I'll upload the same invoice function or invoice document, PDF document, and then upload. So let's go back to the function, and you, within a moment, you will be getting the information that, okay, there you go. So this basically gives you the details about, you can see the storage function processed invoice.pdf with the size this much. So this is the exact, uh, log that we have listed on here, and that is so this means that it is working. Our initial code is working, and as soon as you upload a new document or update an existing document, this is going to trigger and process that document. Now the next step is basically how we will build our code so that it now triggers the document intelligence tool and processes the document, and then fetches the information from that document intelligence tool. So in order to do that, let's do some prep work. Let's stop this. So once you click on this link here, you can stop it, and let's create a environment variable here first. So let's click on new file and name it .env, and there are a couple of uh, information that has to be provided here. So let's do that. Just going to copy it, and so these are the details that has to be provided in your environment variable or in your environment file. That is, what is the recognizer endpoint, what is the API key, and what is the model ID that we are going to use. So let's start with the endpoint. So in order to get the endpoint, again, it's just go back to your portal, go to all resources, look for the document processor, document intelligence, and click on keys and the endpoints, and copy this endpoint detail here and paste it here. Now head back for the key. Take any one of the key. It could be key 1 or key 2. Let me take key 2 and paste it. And for the model ID, again, it could be a custom model ID, or you can use this, your pre-built model ID within your code as well. So we'll be using the same model that ID that we used here. That is going to be R. Let's go to the first one, and let's take the invoice. So this is going to be our model ID. So let's take that, head back to our Visual Studio Code, paste it here. So once this is done, now comes the part where we'll start adding or creating the code which is going to process the document as soon as that is updated, or as soon as that is uploaded in the Azure storage. All right. So we tested the code, the basic code, how this is basically working when you upload or update an existing document. And now we have further, extended the code so that as soon as you upload or update an existing document in the Azure storage, the function app would trigger, and that would basically send this request off to the document intelligence tool, and it will process the details and it will send it back to us. So this is a sample code that I'm using, and I'll be, adding the link to the sample code. And this I'm going to basically trigger now and show you how this is going to work. So in order to test this, let's go to run. So in order to test this, let's go to run and let's start debugging this code. So now our, function and everything is running. So let's go back to the Azure storage account and let's update this invoice document. And as soon as I do that, our function would trigger. It would take the document, it will go to the document intelligence tool, and it will basically give us the output of the, when once the document is processed, all the outputs. So you can see it is triggered already. It has taken the invoice one PDF. It is processing the document now. And now you can see, we have all the information listed down from the document. So you can see, all the details, which is invoice for Microsoft, all this information. So this document that I'm using is just a sample document that I got off internet. So I'm just, using that, and I uploaded that. So this is an invoice document that was there, and you can see this is how it is working. So that's the complete, end to end, how you can utilize your, document intelligence tool in collaboration with your Azure function and your Azure storage account. I hope this session was helpful. Thank you.